Cullen goes live in 2 minutes. Lynn Cullen live in 1 minute. Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com.
Well, hello there, and welcome to Monday. My gosh, it's the last Monday in January, and here's the good news. That means there's really only at most 2 months left of winter, right? And the way winters come around here, and tulips start blooming in February, I guess winter's over. Fantastic. It is January 28th to be specific, and we've got an hour to spend, and I have no guests except you, and I really could use some input today. I had a very busy weekend. I had a lot of my family in town. And, you know, when you're pushed out of your normal routine, I don't know. Today is I saw the last of my family off this morning, very early in the morning. And I just feel, I feel like I'm, still confused about where I am and what's happening. I know it's Monday, but it's a very difficult Monday for me. And, went out to get my papers at 5:30 this morning and did a backflip. It was absolute ice. Wow. I'm sure that I was not the only one who found myself flying through the air. It is now almost all gone, turning to rain. I understand it's going to be something like 85 tomorrow, and then back into below zero on Saturday. And they call this winter. I don't know. None of us know what's going on. I keep thinking, I look at the squirrels and the birds, and I think, God, you guys must be really going nuts. I mean, they get their hopes up 1 minute, oh, spring is here, and then get hammered. And I was concentrating on all the bulbs that are shooting out of the ground initially, and then I thought, well, screw the vegetation. What about these little living creatures? What a confusing reality. And then on the other hand, maybe I'm projecting and engaging in God, what do you call that when you're assuming putting human traits on an animal? Jess?
Look it up.
No, you can't look it up. I'll think of it before you say it. I mean, it's just, yeah. Well, I know it. It's the first time in my life that's deserted me. All right, so this just shows again. I'm old. I'm tired, and I don't know. I was really thinking that if this keeps up, where like I can't remember words, I guess it always happened, but where I feel like I'm struggling more than I used to. So, when do people acknowledge that they're not as sharp as they used to be? I mean, is it this crap that we have that, about the golden years and you're just as capable and this and that? I don't think that's true. I mean, from my own sense is my brain is not as sharp as it was 20 years ago, 25 years ago. It is harder to retrieve a word or information, which I know is in there. I was reading something, I think it was last week, because again, who the hell knows? And it was saying that scientists are studying this stuff all the time. They think the problem is not necessarily that as you age, you're not as capable of finding the word or the memory. It's that there's so much memory that, well, then that is about retrieval. I guess it's about, see here. So by the time I become a babbling idiot, will I know? I mean, I've seen people stay too long at the fair, I am. I'm starting to struggle with this. And maybe it's because I just had one of those serious birthdays. But, at some point, you're just not as sharp. My brother struggled with this reality and wrote a book about it, which was, reviewed with raves in all kinds of very serious magazines. And a lot of the reviewers said, well, if this guy thinks he's losing it, I'd hate to see what he was like before, because the book is so sharp and so funny and so smart. But he genuinely does not feel like he's anywhere near as acute intellectually as he used to be. And that's troublesome. It really is. I was thinking the whole time that I was babbling like this, I would come up with the word that I could, because if you stop trying to think about it, if you turn to the word for ascribing human traits to animals. It's a word I've known for 7,000 years, give or take a few. And when you say it, I'm just going to get upset. I'm just going to get mad. You mean the way the dictionaries work online, you can just come up with a definition? Not personification. No. That's not what I'm looking for. Okay. Come on, one of you, give it to me, because I'm just it's making me crazy. Yeah, anthropomorphism. Right? Anthropomorphic. Yeah. Is that what I was looking for? Yeah, maybe so. I don't know. You are old, Father William. So, yeah, speaking of old, my 90-year-old mother was in town, and she's not as sharp as she used to be. But I guess she can be forgiven. Reaching 90. She's still sitting there doing Sudoku. But, I think we're all living too long. That's my guess. I mean, not that I'm looking for any, not looking to jump out the window. I'm sorry. This is not a good show. This is not a good show, and maybe we should just stop it right here. So I forgot, again, to see the Obama-Hillary interview on 60 Minutes. And from what I understand today, it wasn't like it was anything that broke any news. The news was just the fact that they were interviewed together on 60 Minutes. That was the news, and the so-called then snubbing of Vice President Joe Biden, who has been making it rather clear that he would like to be president despite his age. It is remarkable that Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama clearly found their way to not only mutual respect, but to something akin to friendship. It is remarkable. As faulty as my memory may be, I do remember 5 years ago in the course of that arduous primary campaign, with the two of them fighting tooth and nail, and the nastiness of it oftentimes, that there was no way you could ever conceive of these two ending up where they clearly did last night. Even their body, I've just looked at some of the still pictures, even the way they are sitting, as much as I comprehend body language, even the way they're sitting shows a comfort. His legs crossed toward her and sort of leaning a little toward her. She's sort of leaning a little toward him. There's just a very comfortable vibe in that pairing. And how amazing is that? Also, how troubling is it that we find out that she has to wear those glasses, which Tom Sokolowski pronounced unflattering to her face, that is a result of the concussion she suffered, and that her vision is still not quite right. Wow. Makes you even crazier when you think of how the right-wingers suggested that the concussion and all of that was simply a way for her to weasel out of answering for Benghazi. Here's a woman who ended up in the hospital. Here's a woman who ended up, it's not known, but I think some people thought that she may have even been in the ICU. I heard somebody say that. I don't think that's true. Here was a woman who had a serious, serious injury. And again, it points out how when you hear concussion, as we hear it so readily when we're talking about sports, and you see how serious that is. That's one concussion that she had. Some of the football players have God knows how many, and we're seeing that their brains are damaged. Would any parent today want their child to play football? Would any parent today? No. I mean, I really wonder if football as it currently exists will be able to exist in the future, simply because the more knowledge that we will be getting about the seriousness of permanent brain damage to players, that you got to believe that a parent will say, I'm sorry, can't do it. I'm sorry, you can't do that one. You can do almost any, but you can't do that one. And if more and more people just sort of don't let the children play that game, in which concussions can happen so readily, well, then who's feeding into the high school football level? Who's feeding into the college level? Will it just be sort of like boxing always has seemed to be? Will it just be the underclass because it's a way out? Will it only be those who are willing to get beaten up physically, to be harmed physically, because there is a shot at making it if you jeopardize your health in that manner? Will it only be people with so few opportunities that they're willing to take that one? I don't know. These are questions that arise every once in a while when you're, incapable of focusing on what you're supposed to be, which is the news. So I read all my newspapers this morning, and as usual, it's one horror after another. I'm taken by how many stories repeat themselves. Oh, like today, this big horrific story about the fire in the club in, where was it, in Brazil, where over 200 people were killed. And you've read that story before with in different locations with different numbers of the dead. And it's always the same story. It's not necessarily fire, but this, death by, well, something very similar, of course, happened here in the United States. Almost exactly the same. Excuse me. These horror stories of people simply dying because they're trampled to death, or dying because bodies are piling up on the one exit that you can get out of the conflagration. It's just, yuck. So, I don't know what to say about that. I don't have anything to say about those stories happen all the time. Ferries, Ferries, going down in Asia, right, with hundreds of people aboard. That seems to happen with regularity. Trains running off the track in India. These are stories that you can almost write in your own head, and they happen. And you're sort of, I don't know, I think most people are numb to them. Awful. God. So, front page story in the Post-Gazette about high levels of stress at Carnegie Mellon. Apparently, one of the students there jumped to his death, or her death. I don't know that it was made clear. So there was a suicide. And that prompted another student to write a letter, I guess, to the school paper, a piece talking about the fact that the university pays very little attention to the mental health of the students, that the students there are under extraordinary stress by virtue of the fact that they're at one of the tougher universities in the country, where the student body is composed of brainiacs. And these are people who are used to being at the top. They're used to being straight-A students. And then you congregate all these straight-A students in one place, and the intensity of the competition is hard to imagine. Plus the rigor of the curriculum. And the students' letter suggested that there are some students who are just literally in such a hurry and trying to get ahead with such an intensity that it sounds, like maybe they sleep 3 hours a night and the rest, all they're doing is studying, and they're taking extra classes, and they're not only taking extra classes, they're doing this and they're doing that, still doing what they did in high school, trying to build that resume of a super child. And now they're trying to build a resume of a super person who will, absolutely bound over any competitors in the job market that they'll be heading into. And that level of competition can squash a person. But anyway, CMU apparently listened because there's some kind of a town meeting the school is holding in which they'll try to discuss this. I had a racist thought when I was reading the article. And I will share it with you because it was my thought, and I have admitted in the past to being human and having thoughts that are not politically correct. I go by CMU on my way home and stopped at the stoplight there on Forbes Avenue, and the students crossing, en masse. You cannot help but observe that the percentage of Asians at CMU is it's off the charts. I mean, if you fell asleep and you woke up at that stoplight and you're in a car, you don't know where you are, you might for a second actually believe that, well, I must be in China. Well, I'm somewhere in Asia. Where the hell am I? And I was wondering if the culture, which I have read about the incredible discipline and need to excel that some of these Asian students bring to our campuses now, isn't part of what's pushing that. So I was going to blame it on the Asians. I admit it, that was my racist thought. I was blame it on those Asians. Those strivers. It's what people would have, 40, 50, 60 years ago, they would have said, it's those Jews. They let the Jews into the Ivy League, and look what's happening. So for me, to engage in this kind of racist thought is particularly disgusting. But there you have it. I can't help but be honest with you. Oh, Ansel, are you going to say something about mental sharpness? Oh, Ansel, you're a baby. I'm in my late 40s, he says. Ha! Ha! Your brain is still supple. It is moist. Mine is wrinkling like a prune. I'm in my late 40s, Ansel says, and I listen to your show every day. I can't tell you how often I think, gee, if I was just half as sharp as Lynn. Oh, you sweetie. Is there a caller? Mm-hmm. Uh-oh. Hello. I hope you're not Asian.
Hello, Lynn. It's Michael from Palm Springs.
Michael! Wait a minute.
What is up with this education thing?
Wait. Wait.
Okay.
Somebody told me, Jess, that you hadn't called after I said that you shouldn't call every day. And that's not true, is it?
No, that is not true.
That is correct. And Michael's not mad at me, are you?
No. How can I be mad at you? I can only be mad at you for about 30 seconds.
Oh, so
that's all I allow my anger to last for anyone.
Oh, okay. And
I'm such a type A personality.
Okay.
I can beat you up one minute and then be chummy and buy you a beer in the bar the next.
Okay, well then I have one more question, then you can get to your point. You said you were sending me some wonderful sweet thing you had made, and you didn't.
Yes.
You didn't.
You didn't get it?
No. Did you really send it?
Yeah, I did. This is the second one that somebody has said that they didn't get.
Did you send it through the U.S. Postal
United
Service?
States Postal Service. There's one of the scariest lines of any book that I've ever read is in Requiem for a Dream. I don't know if you're familiar with the movie, Ellen Burstyn.
No,
but there's a line in the book where she's gotten this application to be on television, and she sends it off, and the very last line in the chapter is, and Sarah Goldfarb trusted her dream to the United States Postal Service.
Geez.
That's scary.
Well, we didn't get it.
Okay, well, I will have to make you another one.
Okay, no, don't. I'm sorry. Okay, see, all those mysteries, we thought, oh, he got so mad, he took his, what was it, banana bread back? Oh, he's so mad, he won't call anymore. See? Hi, Michael.
No. And also, I got pretty ill for a while. I've been bedridden for a couple of days.
Oh, I'm sorry.
About a week, but...
well...
Let's not worry about that.
Yes, let's. Well,
let's get to the education thing.
All right. So, what do you think?
I'm concerned that too many students now are not pursuing a passion field.
I agree with you.
That they're simply going for whatever they think is going to earn them the most money.
I agree with you.
In the job market.
Right.
And that's probably adding a lot of stress and reducing scores because their aptitude really isn't in that area.
You know, I think you're right, but stop and think. They are being told to do that. What is belittled now? Somebody who's majoring in history. It is the liberal arts that are now ridiculed. You're supposed to go to college so that you can, land a good job. That's how people now look at it. And you can't land a good job if you're not in what? Computer science or engineering or business management or whatever. And so somebody who, whose passion is poetry or his passion is history, all those things that a lot of people just don't get why it's important. They're told they're wasting the money, and the money is so big to do that. And
True, because the parents are the ones who are footing the bill.
And stop and think about it. We're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars sometimes. And kids now...
Particularly at a school like CMU.
Exactly. So imagine you graduate with a $120,000 degree, and your degree is in French literature, and you can't find a job. The only possible job is teaching, and kids are not bothering to take that kind of thing anymore, and school districts aren't offering it as much because it, again, doesn't lead you to the kinds of jobs that they think. I don't know.
And Pitt dropped their classics program.
Well, exactly right. Some of these things are not even being offered anymore. And I think what's happening, and I really, really think it's a horrible thing, is that universities and colleges are seeing themselves not as what they used to be, temples of learning, but rather essentially vocational schools.
Right, exactly. And I do believe that the majority of people really don't need to go to a university. Most people should probably go to a vo-tech school.
But see, the advice we as a society are giving everybody, the young people, is you have to go to a university, right? Isn't that what you hear over and over? You have to have a university degree. And now we're telling them, and when you're in that university, you have to take these kinds of classes. And if we keep doing what we're doing, there really will be very few people who are still repositories of essentially Western civilization who...
Yeah, exactly. Right? And where are all of the thinking minds going to be coming from? Everybody is just memorizing whatever it is that they need to know for whatever vocation they're wanting to go into.
Yeah, it's dangerous.
And being so empty on everything else.
Well, so it's just going to get worse. It's going to get more so, right?
More likely than not, I'd like to see some type of a change. But I think the change really needs to start in elementary schools. I think that the elementary system should probably be open, allow the children to follow their own interests, watch them, and also guide them a little bit. Say somebody's more into English than they are math, make certain that they do the math, but that their forte is going to be with verbal skills. And then in middle schools and high schools, you can or magnet schools, send them off to whatever magnet school their strongest aptitude is.
Well, dream on, because we're not a society now that is concerned with what your passion may be. We're concerned with creating workers for this brave new world that we're creating. And those workers have to be more, they're going to be appended to computers. And they're not,
Yep.
I mean, that's it. Let's not get me started on we're going to
And
all
then
become robots.
in America, you ask somebody what they do, and they'll tell you, their job.
And you don't understand. Yeah, what do you do? But
In Europe, you ask somebody what they do, and they go, "Oh, I garden, I write poetry."
really?
They discuss what their passions are. We define ourselves by our jobs.
By what we do.
Yeah, and not what we love.
Oh,
We've
boy.
got it backwards. The paradigm is upside down. It's not all about getting. It's about giving.
Well,
But-
I'm afraid you are correct in your assessment.
You may
I
say I'm a
certainly
dreamer, but I'm not the only one.
Yeah, but there may
All
be
right.
fewer and fewer. Hey, great call. I absolutely agree with you, Michael. Thank you. I'm sorry you were ill, and I'm sorry.
Hit happens, right?
What shit happens?
Hit happens. Just switching the letters around, being a little dyslexic.
Okay, you.
Okay.
Enjoyed your call. Thank you, Michael. Bye. Bye. Part of it might be that if a child is coming from a home in which parents have already sort of reached a certain level, so let's say you're upper middle class, maybe those children, you can say, look, there's some financial security here, follow your passion. But if you're a kid coming out of a much less economically secure situation and money is being spent to educate you, I can see where somebody would want to say, you got to get a job where you can, build something. Go ahead, Jess. I'll take the call. Hello?
Hi, Lynn?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is Jarrod from CMU.
Jarrod from CMU.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's the culture that what do you think about this story? Much ado about nothing? Is it real?
Which story?
Oh, you don't even know which story we were talking about? We were talking about
No, you were talking about several different things. I know what I called them out was in response to what your previous caller was saying about poetry and the humanities.
Okay,
and
well,
all
go.
of that.
Yeah, go. I was also mentioning, though, this. There's a front page story in the Post-Gazette about the culture of the intense culture to get ahead and be the best at CMU, and that I guess one of the students there committed suicide earlier this.
Yeah.
And,
Well, I'm of two minds about it.
Okay, go. Just
the first is, I think I may have called you before a long time ago about when the Huffington Post did a review of student opinion trying to locate what they called the new Ivies. And it was, what are, aside from the Harvards and the Yales, what else do students look to get a great education?
Right.
And Carnegie Mellon came up as, I think, right near the top of what they called the new Ivy. And the comment from students about Carnegie Mellon was that it's the place where fun goes to die.
Well, see, but that's it. I mean, you look at the students.
Let me say something
Okay,
about
all right,
that.
okay.
Because, it's like, you have a culture at Carnegie Mellon that is very resistant to other trends that are going on in higher ed, which is towards dumbing education down, such because parents are paying such big money, they feel more like consumers than they do like parents sending their kids off to school,
Right.
that they're buying a product.
That's correct.
So at Carnegie Mellon, they're really resisting any attempt at dumbing down whatever it is. But on the other hand, it has become the place where fun goes to die.
So maybe those two, those two go together.
I can only say for myself that, as a professor there, that what I tell anybody looking to come to Carnegie Mellon is that it is a very challenging school.
Right. It's, really
you have to
rigorous.
be prepared for that.
It's rigorous.
Absolutely. I know students who take 5 or 6 courses a semester.
Why do they do that, though? What's the point of that? What's the hurry? I don't understand that. It's not saving
money. I mean, if you're paying $5 or $47,000 a year, and you can get your requirements, and you feel like, oh, I can do that. Well, that's what the students do. I think there's especially among some of those foreign students where their parents are paying the full shot, or their government is paying the full shot.
Yeah.
So,
well, okay.
I think that's one of the big reasons.
So, we were just talking about, how the humanities are denigrated by so many people now. It's like, why bother with that? What's that good for? What are you going to do with that?
Well, as a history professor, there again, it's like I'm of two minds about it. Because on the one hand, of course, history, arts, literature, it is what makes a Western education so desirable in the first place. It's like if you go, anybody can sit down and memorize mathematical formulas. Anybody can sit down and do, do theorems and study and get all that down.
Not me.
Western, liberal arts and liberal education, it teaches critical thinking.
Right.
And that's why everybody wants to come to American schools. That's one thing. But then on the other hand, I can't even tell you how many students I know who are 3 years out from their degree and have never worked a better job than at Starbucks.
Yes.
And it's like, and if I have students coming in and saying, should I do history or environmental studies? Man.
There are some jobs in environmental. I was at a establishment in Squirrel Hill not too long ago, and I was at a bar, and the bartender was talking to one of the servers. These were both CMU graduates, and I started talking. One was I think philosophy, and the other was something else. But yeah, so here are these two bright kids. And I'm thinking, so you got $140,000 CMU degree, and you're a waiter.
And you're on the hook for that student loan. There's no getting out of that.
So if education were, as it is often in Europe, financially, not debilitating to a person, if you could get an education without going into debt for the rest of your life, it is conceivable that more people would choose to follow their passion. I'm passionate about poetry. That's what I'm going to do. But with the price tag that we now have on our education, you can see why people start looking at the university as a grand vocational school. True,
but another dimension to that is, though, that one of the other reasons why people from around the world come to American institutions and American colleges and universities is because we have such an extraordinary range of options, from community colleges to what used to be called teacher colleges, to state universities, to private small liberal arts colleges, to big places like Harvard and Yale.
Right.
No other country in the world has anything like that. And so it's like, I think one of the things we need to do is be focusing in on educating students when they're juniors and seniors about their choices and about, what is it that, what makes sense, both given the job market and given their interests, and given what's available.
Well, the fact is, if a kid is interested in, again, poetry, French literature, medieval history, whatever, if that's their passion, there aren't any jobs.
That's correct. And so it's a kind of thing that you can have students, and here again, I mean, it's like high schools aren't training kids to do poetry or even English literature or, any number of other areas of the humanities. They're not teaching them to a level at which that they're really ready for a college, for a serious college experience.
All right, so in a generation or two, what human beings in this country will embody like the Western canon? Is gonna be anybody around who's even going to?
Yeah. It's hard to say, because even as you have that, you also have the proliferation. It's actually, there's a level at which it's easier for some people who have that passion. Like if, say, you had a passion. Well, what kind of passions do you have in the intellectual field still, Lynn?
I do love I love literature. I love writing.
But if you had with that passion for literature, there's things like there's places. Have you ever heard of the Teaching Company?
No.
You ever heard of them?
No.
They are this company that locates the best lecturers in the world and puts them on audio tape and DVD and such, and you can buy their courses for like $60, and they have hundreds of courses.
Okay.
So you have, and then also you have the advent of online teaching and things like that, which I'm not so sold on.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like it is a complex educational market right now, and boy. I have a story. Do you have time for a story?
Yeah, I was just looking. I haven't taken it. Go ahead. I'm gonna.
Back about 3 or 4 years ago, I was teaching an urban history class, and I had a student who was doing badly. And you have ways of finding out what students' passions are through little things they post themselves. And I looked up this student's passion. And it was guitar playing, and yet he was majoring as an engineer.
Mm-hmm.
And his father called me from Indonesia. Okay.
Yeah.
And asked him, "Why is my student doing so badly?" And it's like I had to kind of break it to him. He was sort of implying that it was my fault that his son was doing so badly.
Uh-huh.
Like, your son doesn't like what he's doing, and that's what the student had told me. And so it's a vexing issue to try and have people make smart choices when they go to college.
Yeah, well, it's a problem. Hey, quickly before because I got to get to a break. Your news nuggets today. This is Jarrod, the news nuggets guy. You have a number of stories about this explosion at the Iranian nuclear facility. Can you give us your sense of what's going on there?
Well, they've had this will at least the second, maybe even the third explosion at this Fordo nuclear facility. And there's several, the Jerusalem Post and the Daily Telegraph are reporting that, that there was this big explosion there, although it hasn't been confirmed. And I find it interesting that no U.S. sources have said a word about it. But my take on it is that there is so much that has been messed with concerning that nuclear facility. I would be terrified if I were working there.
You mean
because we've already had lots of evidence of the computer software being messed with. We've had evidence of equipment that has been purposefully maladjusted there.
Okay,
You
so
have,
all this sabotage.
Intelligence leaks all over the place.
Right.
So.
Well, are those inside jobs, or is that all? Everybody says it's always Israel. What's your sense?
Oh, I think, indirectly, I wouldn't be at all surprised if it's U.S. and Israeli intelligence that has somehow gotten some defective equipment, some staff or scientists who have done something, or another computer software worm that has worked some havoc, or some combination of those things.
Okay, because I know this is a subject you pay a lot more attention to than most of us. As usual, Jarrod, thank you so much.
Okie doke.
Appreciate it. Bye. Bye. I got to take a break, guys. I completely forgot. I was thinking I was doing public radio or something, and you didn't have commercials. Maybe we'll just jam this into one break, okay? Can't we do that, do you think, Jess? Are there any actual paid-for spots anywhere, or is it all a bunch of gobbledygook?
Yeah, that's just in the first one. It's okay. We'll do it.
Okay. We'll take a break and come back, and I actually have something I had intended to talk about that maybe I can turn my attention to in a minute.
Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com or call Lynn at 412-316-3381. Lynn Cullen Live will return in a moment.
Lynn Cullen Live and Panera Bread celebrate the life and legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King.
After an unsuccessful Chicago campaign, ending with Operation Breadbasket, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. returned to Atlanta. On April 4, 1967, King addressed the Riverside Church and gave what many consider his greatest speech. Somehow this madness must cease. I speak as a child of God and a brother to the suffering poor of Vietnam. I speak for the poor of America who are paying the double price of smashed hopes at home and death and corruption in Vietnam. I speak as a citizen of the world, for the world as it stands aghast at the path we have taken. The great initiative in this war is ours. The initiative to stop it must be ours.
Countdown to King, brought to you by Highmark Blue Cross Blue Shield. Have a greater hand in your health, and Lynn Cullen Live.
Pittsburgh City Paper is available now. Pick up one today for Mozart, Joy Ike, Mark Eddy, Black Veil Brides, and News of the Weird. Pittsburgh City Paper available at over 1,700 locations throughout Western Pennsylvania, and on the web at pghcitypaper.com, and on your smartphone at citypapermobile.com.
Today, My Care Navigator forwarded my medical records and freed my mind for other things.
Introducing My Care Navigator, your 24/7 healthcare co-pilot, new from Highmark.
My Care Navigator found me the ideal specialist. Less work for me.
My Care Navigator makes it easier to navigate the system. Call 1-888-BLUE-428 to connect with yours today. Highmark Blue Cross Blue Shield is an independent licensee of the Blue Cross and Blue Shield Association.
Go to BergBargains.com for great deals on meals from your favorite local restaurants, museums, and shows. This week only, get discounts up to 20% on gift cards to Panera Bread. Supplies are limited. BergBargains.com, Pittsburgh's best bargains. BergBargains.com.
Have a question or an opinion? Call Lynn Cullen at 412-316-3381 or email lynn at pghcitypaper.com. Now, more with Lynn Cullen Live.
Yeah, I mean, okay, guys. I just wanted to. There's one little, glimmer of good news in the news today when you look. This fact that there's this attempt at a bipartisan blueprint from members of the Senate working together to come up with some kind of way to handle the 11 million people who live amongst us and with us who do not have legal status. And I find it heartening. I know it's not going to be easy, but quite clearly this is one of the things that the wounded Republicans have decided they've got to be part of the solution here, if only to save their own skin. They're looking, again, the one demographic they feel that they cannot afford to offend anymore would be the growing Hispanic population in the country, and that obviously illegal immigration, that whole issue, is terribly important to them. and the president tomorrow will be coming up with his ideas, and so you've got some sense of finding common ground and an effort to move forward. Now, it goes without saying that we're talking about a bipartisan group of senators, and it's one thing for the Senate to get its act together and get things moving forward. But as you know, the way the system works, whatever the Senate does, it doesn't go anywhere unless that lower house, the more populated house, the House of Representatives, home to more wackos per square inch than it has had in its history, perhaps, that their willingness to be serious about this issue, too, and to move away from their usual talking points and whipping up fears of the other and fears of hordes of immigrants coming to our shores. Well, whatever. I do find that was the only thing that I saw in the news that gave me hope. I want to note the passing of two pretty big characters in Pittsburgh this weekend. One, Dr. Tom Allen, who I have talked about as somebody I did know, not well, but I know some of his friends very well. Tom Allen was, it says here on the front page of the paper, a towering figure in the field of women's health and reproductive rights. He was the guy who was way out in front on the abortion issue here. He was the doctor that one could go to. He was also very heavily involved in the arts and in politics, and he was the one who gained national notoriety just last year at the age of 92 for having been the lover of Rick Santorum's wife before she was Rick Santorum's wife, you understand. But what made it sort of scandalous is this sense that Rick Santorum, probably the most anti-abortion politician, well, I don't know, there's a million of them you can stick in that category, that his wife, even at a young state, would have lived for, I think, 7 or 8 years with this abortion doctor, who was, by the way, 40 years easily her senior. And I think the thing that creeped people out more than anything was that he was the doctor who brought, I'm blanking on Santorum's wife's name, that brought her, Karen, that's right, thank you, that brought Karen Santorum into the world. So he birthed her, and then 20 years later, he's sleeping with her. And he's 60-something years old at the time. Anyway, it's a creepy story in a lot of ways and whatever. So Tom Allen got mixed up in that toward the end of his life when that information was released in an effort to scuttle any chances Rick Santorum had of moving forward. Okay, we have a caller. Go ahead. Caller, go ahead. Hello.
Hello, Lynn.
Yeah.
Just real quick, going back to that immigration.
Yeah.
I feel good about letting people in the country and all that and making them legal because they've been here working and that. But I have a bad feeling about it, too, because then you just have a bigger pool of people that are going to be fighting for good jobs, like winning the lottery is basically what it is to get a good job today. And you have more poverty in this country. I mean, it's like bittersweet. I don't know if it's good or bad. I don't know. That's my opinion, though.
Okay, I appreciate it.
Okay, bye.
Bye. I don't know that it makes any difference. What has always made this country great is the ingathering of people from all around the world who come here because of the siren song of opportunity in America. And I have always maintained that what that does is attract not the, I'll use some Republican words here, it attracts not the takers, it attracts the makers. It attracts people with drive, with courage, with ambition. And anytime a country is attracting people with drive and ambition and dreams, that country will be strengthened by that, not harmed. A thriving country creates jobs. I mean, there's always going to be people, whether they're native-born or immigrant, that struggle and don't make it. But I don't think the sense that these people will take the jobs that we should have had, I don't think that stands up to scrutiny. That's my sense. I don't know that I can articulate it very well. The other passing I wanted to note was Ora Lee Carroll. This was a woman who, what a character. I vaguely remember I interviewed her a number of times. She was a true piece of work. Black activist, Republican, who, I don't know. I remember her. She would get herself in trouble all the time. She shot somebody once. She was fierce, and she was fierce in sort of reclaiming her neighborhood. And I'm not so sure she got all that much accomplished, but she was somebody who did stand up. And even if I think she got her politics wrong or whatever it was she was up to, and I know, I think she was a little, well, I don't want to say, I'll just say a character. But I was sorry to see that she also had passed. 71 years old. She fought violence and drug trafficking, but ended up on the wrong side of the law herself on more than one occasion, is what I recall. So two pretty interesting characters locally in the obituary pages today. I came across a piece in the New York Times yesterday that the headline made me stop in my tracks. The headline is, "Enjoying Snow While We Still Have It." And I thought, this is one of those global warming stories probably. And it is. It is about climate change and about the fact that the snow cover is absolutely decreasing markedly in the northern hemisphere. And obviously it's due in part to global warming. I know we're not supposed to say global warming, climate change. But here is one guy who says the snowpack, and this is serious, the snowpack out west is how we store water for the summer for half the country. All that snow on those Rocky Mountains and the Cascades, all of that is what then gives water to California, where so much of our food comes from, and all, well, you know this. Okay, so the snowpack is how we store water for the summer for half the country, and it is disappearing. And you can start cataloging the havoc that can create. Obviously, shortage of water for the cities. Obviously, it will affect the ecosystems and wildlife struggling for water. It means more wildfires, and we have seen, we're seeing an increase, right, in wildfires. And when the landscape has less snow on it, it ends up absorbing more heat from the sun, which then again, just creates these vicious cycles we we're getting into with climate change. The National Climate Assessment expects heat-related deaths to increase more than winter weather-related fatalities will decline. But mostly what interested me about this piece was when you have snow, a lot of snow, we complain about it, right? Oh, it's snowing, this and that. It makes life harder. But it's pointed out that in the British Isles, snow is precious. It doesn't snow there very often. Did you know that? They don't get snow. And when they get snow, they go nuts. They just love it. It's beautiful. They appreciate it. They write poetry about it. It shows that anytime something is rare, it is precious. So I guess the good side of this is if snow becomes something that we don't get very often, we're going to be like the Brits. And when it snows, we're going to all run outside and cavort and love it. But what I really appreciated about this is that the writers reminds us that snow, and think about this, when snow falls, it remakes our world. I mean, anytime the snow falls, you would say everything's more beautiful. And that kind of sort of wonder that it brings us. Also, snow can create a stillness, right? Sound is different. Light is different. We are forced to perhaps slow down or stay indoors. There's something about snow that if we get less and less and less and less of it, we will, I assure you, miss it. Some of my family lives in Chicago, and they were telling me that Chicago has set a record this year. I think it's almost 1 year. Is it over a year? It's over 360 days where Chicago has had, it's not no measurable snow, but no snow more than 1 inch. And I got to tell you, stop and think about lake effect. Chicago's on the lake, on Michigan. Chicago's a city that knows snow. I mean, and you get tons of snow. The fact that now it's not even snowing in Chicago is bizarre. Barbara has chimed in with aging brains, because that's what I started with. I'm worrying about mine. Oh, yes, and this was in the news today. I didn't read it because I was feeling like it'll depress me. What does it say? Scientists have known for decades that the ability to remember newly learned information declines with age. So it's harder to learn. Can't teach an old dog new tricks. The ability to remember newly learned information declines with age, but it was not clear why. A new study may provide part of the answer. This study in the science journal Nature Neuroscience suggests that structural brain changes occurring naturally over time interfere with sleep quality, which in turn blunts the ability to store memories for the long term. So the older you get, the less well you sleep, and that changes your brain, and that interferes with memory retrieval, or even memory storage. The findings suggest that one way to slow memory decline in aging adults is to improve sleep. Well, all right. I always think I'm pretty good at sleeping, generally speaking, as places go, people go. Well, thank you for that. And you know what I always learned, and I later saw this as true, but as a student, let's say you had to memorize a poem or you had to memorize something and there was a test the next day. I would always go through it when I was lying in bed right before I knew I was going to go to sleep. And if I could do it right before I went to sleep, when I woke up in the morning, man, was it there. It's like, do it right before you go to sleep and then sleep. And man, it just gets hammered. It's there. It's there. It's there. Every poem or soliloquy or anything I ever memorized, that was the way I did it. If I could do it right before I went to sleep, I knew I'd have it in the morning. So sleep and memory, I'm sure. I see it's time to go. And not only that, I'm parked on the street and I've got to bolt out of here because that meter maid seems to have my schedule. And they just wait. So I got to get running. Susan will join me tomorrow, Potter Wednesday, Tom Sokolowski on Thursday, and I hope you, all those days, have a good one.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper, Steel City Media, and its advertisers.